The early morning hours of August 27, 2006, began like any other at Bluegrass Airport in Lexington, Kentucky. Flights were scheduled, passengers were boarding, and the day ahead promised routine operations. But for Comair Flight 5191, this day would end in tragedy, with an accident that would become one of the most devastating in Kentucky's aviation history. Comair Flight 5191 was a Bombardier CRJ-100ER, a regional jet scheduled to fly from Lexington to Atlanta, Georgia. The flight carried 47 passengers and 3 crew members, including an experienced captain and first officer. On paper, everything appeared routine, but beneath the surface, a chain of events was forming that would lead to disaster. The morning was dark, just before sunrise, with the airport illuminated by artificial lights. Construction work at Bluegrass Airport had recently altered the layout of the taxiways and runways. While temporary signs and markings had been installed, confusion lingered among pilots navigating the airport, particularly in low-light conditions. Flight 5191's pilots completed their pre-flight checks, received clearance for takeoff, and taxied toward the assigned runway. However, instead of heading to runway 22, the correct and much longer runway for departure, the pilots mistakenly lined up on runway 26. Runway 26 was significantly shorter, designed for smaller aircraft, and completely unsuitable for the fully loaded regional jet. This critical mistake went unnoticed by both the pilots and air traffic control. The air traffic controller on duty was the only one in the tower and was occupied with other tasks after clearing Flight 5191 for takeoff. As the jet began its takeoff roll, the passengers on board were likely unaware of the perilous situation unfolding. Runway 26, at only 3,500 feet, was far too short for the Bombardier CRJ-100ER to achieve the necessary speed for liftoff. As the aircraft accelerated, the pilots realized too late that they were running out of runway. They attempted to pull up, but the jet failed to generate enough lift. At the end of the runway, the aircraft veered off, crashing into a field just beyond the airport perimeter. The impact was catastrophic. A massive explosion followed, engulfing the plane in flames and leaving a devastating scene of wreckage. Of the 50 people on board, 49 perished in the crash. The sole survivor was the first officer, who suffered severe injuries but miraculously lived through the disaster. The loss of life was immense, leaving families, friends, and communities in shock and grief. In the aftermath, investigators from the National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, began piecing together the events that led to the crash. The investigation revealed a combination of factors that contributed to the tragedy. Human error played a central role. The pilots failed to notice that they were on the wrong runway, despite clear differences in the lengths and markings of runway 22 and runway 26. The NTSB found that fatigue may have been a factor, as the pilots had limited rest before the flight, potentially impairing their judgment.